Fight fans, welcome to the PBC Podcast, brought to you by Premier Boxing Champions with your host, Kenneth Bouhairie and Michael Rosenthal.
Welcome everyone to the PBC Podcast. I'm Kenneth Bouhairie.
I'm Michael Rosenthal, editor of USA Today's Boxing Junkie.
I want to thank you as always for tuning in. Joining us this week, undefeated WBA welterweight titleist Eimantas Stanionis. And on toe-to-toe, Mike and I are going to name our choices for the MVP of PBC's first event on Prime Video. I've seen a lot of folks recap the action over the past couple weeks, so now it's our turn. Without further ado, let's jump into the week in review. On Saturday, March 30th, Premier Boxing Champions debuted on Prime Video. It was the first card of the year for PBC, T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, and what a card it was. I mean, nonstop action, just a great event from top to bottom. I thoroughly enjoyed it. In the main event, on the PBC pay-per-view main event, Tszyu taking on Sebastian Fundora for Tszyu's 154-pound WBO strap and the vacant WBC title. Fundora was a replacement after Keith Thurman withdrew with a biceps injury, and man, what a bloody battle this turned out to be. Tszyu with this seriously bad cut on his head from running into Fundora's elbow. It's just one of the worst cuts I've ever seen in my life. And, after 12 hard-fought rounds, Fundora walks away with a majority decision and 2 world titles. Mike, what were your thoughts on the fight?
Well, the first word that comes to mind is disappointing. It certainly was interesting, an interesting, dramatic fight, which is what you want, but not for ideal reasons. I always hope to see both men and women at their very best to see who's the better fighter. That wasn't the case in this fight, obviously. Tszyu couldn't see because of the blood in his face and his eyes. I want to give Fundora credit, though. He got the job done, but the story of the fight really was what you said, the horrible amount of blood from both guys. As they both said after the fight, though, that's boxing, stuff happens.
Yeah, I mean, did you expect Fundora to box as well as he did?
I thought that might be the game plan, as I suggested in our last podcast. I thought that was the smartest strategy for him. So, no, I wasn't shocked. I guess what did surprise me to some degree was the fact that he stayed the course. He never deviated from that approach to the fight. I thought that was really intelligent, jabbing incessantly and following with enough power shots to win rounds, combined with the blood in Tszyu's eyes, obviously. That made it difficult for the champion to get anything done in this fight. So kudos to Fundora and his team.
Yeah, I remember you saying that in the last podcast, and I thought he might, but I've never seen him use the jab that well before. It was in Tszyu's face the entire night, and it proved to be a pretty good strategy given the issues that Tszyu was having, that night. How much do you think that the cut affected, Tszyu's cut, I should say, affected the outcome of the fight?
Well, again, Fundora deserves credit, but yes, he was lucky. He was fortunate. He was also really good in this fight, though. So that combination is tough to beat. That said, I think the cut and his corner's inability to stop the flow of blood made Tszyu just a shell of what we know he is. Imagine fighting a guy who's 6'5.5" with heavy hands without being able to see him. That's just crazy. Yeah. I thought that was one of the most gutsy performances I've seen, given the circumstances.
Yeah, without question. What do you think would have happened if he hadn't been cut?
I think we got a glimpse of what might have happened in the first few rounds when Tszyu was able to land some eye-catching shots, and I think he was just getting started. He had momentum before the cut. I just think Tszyu is better than Fundora. I think he would have landed more and more shots as he became more comfortable with Fundora's height and his reach and his style, which I believe would have led to a victory for Tszyu. I want to be clear once again, though. You got to give Fundora credit. He did what he was supposed to do to win the fight. So my gut tells me that Tszyu is better, but Fundora deserved the victory in the first fight.
Yeah, he fought a bright fight. How did you score the fight on your card?
I scored at 116, 112 for Fundora, 8 rounds to 4. Tszyu had some good moments in spite of his vision issues. You could argue that he landed the harder punches, which evidently impressed Judge Tim Cheatham, who scored at 116, 112 for Tszyu. I just thought that Fundora outworked him, though. CompuBox isn't the last word on anything, but they had Fundora out punching Tszyu 721 to 400, which is a significant gap. For the record, I think Cheatham's card was pretty bad. Tszyu didn't do enough to win 8 rounds, in my opinion.
So what does this mean for him now? I mean, coming to this fight on the verge of stardom in America, and I don't think he really lost any star power with his performance, but such an important fight, and you suffer that cut, you go through with it, you battle, and then ultimately you come up short. What does it all mean for Tszyu?
It means he ran into some bad luck, which can happen to anybody. He's a talented guy who's really, really tough, both physically and mentally. My guess is that this is just a temporary setback. I think he'll bounce back quickly, assuming he gets the fights that will allow him to do that. I think he'd get an immediate rematch. I think him getting an immediate rematch with Fundora would be the way to go. I think that would be justice. And Fundora's promoter, Samson Lefkowitz, recently said, that's the plan, that there was an oral agreement on a rematch clause and that Team Fundora would honor it. So we'll see what happens in that regard. No matter what, I believe Tszyu will have another belt sooner rather than later.
What about Fundora? What does this mean for him?
It's just huge for Fundora. First he got what he's been working for his entire life. You could see how happy he was after the fight. Once again, he can legitimately say that he earned it. Injuries are a part of boxing. And second, he's now in a position of power. The WBO has ordered him to defend his new title against Terrence Crawford. He'd make enough money in that fight, to be set up for life if he's smart. And of course, it would be a tremendous opportunity for him boxing-wise. If he wins that fight if somehow he beats Terrence Crawford, he's just on top of the boxing world.
Yes, seriously. You said you want to see the rematch. Is that what you would like for both guys next?
Yeah, I'd like to see a rematch for the reasons I stated earlier. Tszyu deserves it. Again, talk about a stroke of bad luck. And you remember, he gave Fundora, an opportunity when I don't think he really had to in that situation. He gave him an opportunity with just a couple weeks before the fight. So I think in a perfect world, Fundora would give him a rematch. If that doesn't happen for whatever reason, I guess Fundora should take the fight with Crawford if it's really there. I don't think that would be a big swing for Fundora, but I do think that would be a big swing for Fundora. But I thought the same thing before the Tszyu fight. So who knows what might happen? Another possibility is if he wants to wait on Crawford is Serhii Bohachuk, who looked terrific against Brian Mendoza on Saturday. So he has other options. But perfect world, he'd fight Tszyu again.
Yeah, and we'll touch on Bohachuk's performance in a little bit. That was an impressive performance. Let's talk about the co-main for a little bit. We witnessed the birth of a star. Although truthfully he's been a star for some time, but it was just that much more noticeable Saturday night. Isaac Pitbull Cruz is who I'm talking about, and what a performance from him. Pitbull stopping Rolando Romero in the 8th round to become the WBO 140-pound world champion. Mike, what were your thoughts on this fight?
So as I wrote on Boxing Junkie, I thought it was more of a coronation than a competitive fight, but it was breathtaking nonetheless. Cruz just looked like an unstoppable force to me. Romero tried hard. He tried catching Cruz coming in, staying on his bike, but he just couldn't. He just got overwhelmed by a better fighter. I guess I was a little disappointed that Romero didn't put up a better fight, but I also love a special performance, which is what Cruz turned in on that date.
Yeah, for sure. I was so impressed by what I saw, the crowd, everything. Interestingly enough, one judge had Romero slightly ahead. What did you think when you heard that?
Yeah, that's another card that I don't get. I had it 69-63 after 7 rounds for Cruz, 6 rounds to 1. I thought it was more or less just complete domination. The one judge had it 66-65 for Romero, which is 4 rounds to 3. I don't know what he was looking at. I thought Romero landed only here and there, while Cruz connected on shots almost at will. Of course, Cruz did what he said he wanted to do, take the result out of the hands of the judges. So at least 2 guys got it right.
Yeah, I agree with that. Did you see anything different style-wise from Rolly in this fight?
No, that's what I expected, and probably what was his best hope to be competitive. Counter, move, hold, anything to slow Cruz down. He just couldn't do it. I thought that's who Romero was going into the fight, a guy who boxes and picks his spots. I don't know what else he could have done, although maybe he could have done a better job with his jab and gone to the body more than he did, I suppose. I really believe it was just mission impossible for him, though. It just was not a good matchup for him.
Yeah, I thought he fought actually well. You're right. I mean, look, it just was a bad style matchup. He fought well. He boxed off the back foot. It was as good as I'd seen from him, other than maybe the Gervonta Davis fight early on. But, Pitbull is just a tank, man. Where does Rolly go from here?
That was a tough loss for him. He was sort of embarrassed, particularly in light of all the pre-fight trash talk that he did. I think he'll take a step back, rest for a while, and then start the rebuilding process, maybe against like a fringe contender, somebody we know but not a top guy. He's still young, though. He's only 28. He can come back and reestablish himself as a top contender, although I don't think it'll be easy for him. Again, that was a bad loss.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he needs to continue to work with Ismael Salas. I kind of like the work they did in this fight. Probably 6-8 weeks wasn't enough to implement all the things that Salas would like to and change all the things that Salas would like to. But I think I see potential there, so I hope they continue to work together. What about Cruz? Where do you rank him among the 140-pounders today?
I think you have to slot him in right behind fellow title holders Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez, maybe right with Subriel Matias. I really don't think Lopez is that far ahead of Cruz, if he's ahead at all, though. I rank Cruz number 3 only because he's just getting started. Haney and Lopez have stronger resumes at the moment. I hope Cruz can get one or both of those guys into the ring, where these debates really need to be settled. I wouldn't be shocked at all if Cruz turns out to beat guys at that level. We just haven't seen that yet.
And in terms of star power, how big of a star is he right now?
I think his victory over Romero was a significant step for him, particularly among Mexican fans. The Mexicans love fighters with Cruz's seek and destroy style. They just live to watch guys fight like that. And I think all fans are pretty clear on what Cruz is. A really good fighter who's really fun to watch. It's difficult to quantify his popularity, but I sense he's on a steep ascension. If he can beat a pound for pounder or two in the near future, I think he has a chance to become the face of Mexican boxing and a worldwide star, which is the dream of every fighter.
Yeah. Who would you like to see him face next?
Of course, I'd like to see him face one of his fellow belt holders, but I don't see that happening immediately. It's not difficult to come up with good matchups, though. How about him versus Gary Antoine Russell, who's zeroing in on a title shot? I mean, that would just be epic. How about him and Elvis Rodriguez, a guy who was building momentum last year. Jose Ramirez, if that fight can be made. There are a lot of big fights for Isaac Cruz, especially now.
Yeah, I agree with you and looking forward to seeing him in all of them. Now, also on the pay-per-view, Erislandy Lara, boy, he should change his moniker from the American Dream to just the Dream, because all he does lately is put guys to sleep. Lara successfully defended his WBA middleweight world championship, knocking out Michael Zarafa of Australia just in 2 rounds with a beautiful left hand. Mike, what's your take on Erislandy Lara 2.0, the KO artist?
It's impressive. I don't think the power suddenly emerged late in his career. It was always there. It's his style change that has shifted the focus to his ability to hurt opponents. I think the change came out of necessity. He's not as quick or mobile as he once was, which is why he's more stationary. He's still a good boxer and clever as hell, though. He knows how to land those power shots. And we see the damage they can do. Yeah,
for sure. Can you recall, though, like any other fighter who began flashing that kind of power as they got older because they sat on their punches more?
So I was thinking about this, and I was actually talking to a friend about this very subject, and he came up with an interesting name, Muhammad Ali.
That's exactly who I was thinking of.
Right.
Exactly who I was thinking of.
First, I'm not comparing Lara to Ali. I'm not going to compare anyone to Ali. The point is that Ali evolved into a different fighter in the second part of his career. His quickness and his athleticism was just like completely off the charts in the 1960s. We're never going to see that again. And then he lost, a step after his hiatus from the sport. The result that was that he was more flat-footed, more willing to exchange and rely on his toughness and power, underestimated power to win fights. My friend reminded me that Ali knocked out George Foreman, Ron Lyle, and Joe Frazier all within a 1-year period.
Wow.
Ali certainly was never a slugger, but I can see a parallel to what we're seeing with Erislandy Lara.
Yeah, that's super impressive. I mean, insanely impressive. And for sure, I've heard Teddy Atlas speak about that Ali did have pop. He just didn't really sit on his punches. And you saw once he sat down and did that. Who would you like to see Lara face next?
So I think he really wants to, and he needs to face a next level opponent, one of his fellow title holders. Maybe Elijah Garcia, although it might be too early for Garcia. The youngster might be a victory or two away from that. I thought of Chris Eubank Jr. Lara's mentioned Danny Garcia. I love that matchup. Anyway, Lara's targeting that level opponent, so we'll see whether he can handle that sort of challenge at 41. He's turning 41 soon.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I like the Danny Garcia fight. I like Carlos Adames. Maybe it's Terrence Crawford. If Crawford wants to go up that high is a distinct possibility. I mean, lots of good options for Erislandy Lara. Now, in the pay-per-view opener, Julio Cesar Martinez and Angelino Cordova put on a great fight for the fans. Martinez scored 2 knockdowns, which proved to be the difference as he retained his WBC flyweight world title via 12-round majority decision. What was your take on this fight?
It was really competitive. I kept expecting Martinez to take charge, but he just really couldn't. Cordova is an awkward, tricky guy who sort of peppers you with light punches, and he just won't stand still for a second. I thought Martinez did land the harder shots, though, and he did put Cordova down twice with those stiff jabs, which were like power shots. He also battled through a bad cut to do it, which I thought was impressive. Anyway, it was a good fight that could have gone either way.
Well, how did you score it?
So I had it 114, 112, 6 rounds apiece. So 114, 112 for Martinez. But in terms of rounds, I had an even fight. On my card, Martinez won the fight with the 2 knockdowns in round 3. So it doesn't get much closer than that.
Yeah, I didn't score it, as I typically don't upon first viewing. But I thought that the knockdowns were the difference. What should be next for Martinez?
I think he wants to unify, which means he could pursue the WBA champ Sego Yuriakui, if I'm saying that correctly, or he could wait, and go after, whomever wins the titles vacated by Bam Rodriguez. I don't know. I also think the WBC's top contender David Jimenez is a legitimate opponent for him if he doesn't get a unification bout immediately. Jimenez gave former champ Artem Dalakian a tough fight, so he's actually a tough out too.
Yeah, for sure. All those are great potential matchups for Martinez. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll be back to discuss the PBC on Prime portion of the card.
Canelo Álvarez. Jaime Munguía.
Canelo Munguia, Saturday, May 4th, live on PBC Pay-Per-View on Prime Video.
Opening up the Prime Video portion ahead of the main event, Sergey Bouhairie looked as good as I've ever seen him, capturing the interim WBC 154-pound title with a dominant 12-round decision over Brian Mendoza. I definitely didn't see this coming. What did you think of Bouhairie's performance?
Yeah, I didn't see it coming quite that way either. I thought he was just excellent. That pressure he applies is just suffocating. Remember, Mendoza's a good, experienced boxer with a lot of power, and he just couldn't do anything to slow Bouhairie down. He was treading water the whole fight. Bouhairie's going to be difficult for anybody to beat.
Yeah, I agree with you. That kind of performance was, just scary, just super scary. Looking at the landscape at 154, where do you rank him among the top super welters?
Well, he's ranked number 2 by the WBC, but not at all by the other 3 sanctioning bodies, which is curious. I found that kind of odd. After the victory on Saturday, I think he's right there, at least close to guys like Erickson Lubin, Virgil Ortiz, Jesus Ramos. I see him as a legitimate contender, particularly after that performance.
Yeah, I mean, I see him as a threat to anybody at 154 after that performance. Those were some big, big shots he was throwing on Mendoza. Speaking of Mendoza, where does he go from here?
I'm not sure. He had that breakthrough knockout of Fundora, which earned him a shot at Tszyu. He lost that fight by a one-sided decision, and then he suffered the same fate against Bochuk. I think he needs to get back in line. Maybe he fights one or two lower-level contenders to build some momentum, but I think he's really going to have to start sort of a rebuilding process after back-to-back losses.
Yeah. Although, to his credit, they were back-to-back losses, to elite guys in the division. Who would you like to see Bohairie face next?
I think Lubin or Ramos are both good options if there's interest on the other side. I don't know what Jermell Charlo's long-term plans are. He's champion in recess. Maybe Bohairie fights number one Charles Conwell for the title. He's WBC's number one, Charles Conwell. I'm not sure if I'd want my guy to fight Bohairie, though. As I said, he's a tough guy to beat if you can't hurt him like Brandon Adams did. So we'll see who's willing to fight Bohairie.
I was surprised that Mendoza couldn't hurt him. So, hey, look, guys improve, guys get better. That certainly was the case for Bohairie. Now, in the Prime video opener, we witnessed someone who looked like a future star in 17-year-old Carmel Moten. Moten is now 3-0 after a spirited 8-round unanimous decision over the very game Anthony Cuba. Mike, were you surprised by how competitive the fight was?
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised. Normally, you get a guy in Moten's situation, and they sort of just place a random generic guy in front of him who he could dominate. That kind of thing. And Anthony Cuba actually is a pretty good fighter, unbeaten, young, prospect himself. Said, I couldn't believe I was watching a 17-year-old in Moten. Again, Cuba was a pretty good fighter, and I thought Moten controlled the fight. He couldn't put him away, but he outclassed him, I thought, from the beginning. It was really interesting to watch a teenager do that. I thought he made the most of his opportunity to fight on a big stage. And one more reference to your question. And I'm glad that he did it against a guy who was competent, because you don't often see that. So I was particularly impressed with Moten's performance given his opponent.
Yeah. I mean, we got a good look at two very, very good prospects. What do you think makes Moten such a special talent?
You can tell he's been boxing since a very young age, like he was born to do this. And I saw some of his mentor Floyd Mayweather in him. I'm speaking specifically of the shoulder roll he used at times. I kept looking for that, and he did do that, a number of times. I just think he has the gift. He works hard. He has ridiculous poise for such a young fighter. And having the backing of Mayweather doesn't hurt. As I wrote, we might look back on Saturday night years from now and realize that he was the best fighter on the card.
Yeah, it's possible. Maybe the biggest star on the card as well. Where do you think he can improve?
Honestly, I didn't see any glaring weaknesses. I'm like, okay, yeah, that he needs to really work on that. Now, he can work on his defense. Cuba didn't land at a high percentage, only 24%, according to CopyBox, but he was able to land punches. But at the same time, Moten is an offensive-minded fighter. He's more offensive-minded than Mayweather was. And offensive-minded fighters, guys who aren't afraid to attack, are going to get hit sometimes. It's just the reality. I think Moten just needs to continue to polish what already is working really well after only 3 professional fights. I really believe he could become a world champion as a teenager, which is really saying something.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, young Floyd was really, really aggressive as well.
I know. It was the Floyd of the later career that was a little bit less, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Later in his career, but I agree with you. I think his defense certainly needs work and just needs to be mindful of what's coming at him. Let's bring in our guest this week. He'll be making his anticipated ring return Saturday, May 4th, as he faces fellow unbeaten welterweight Gabriel Maestre in what promises to be a great matchup. Welterweight titleist Eimantas Stanionis. Eimantas, it has been a while, more than 2 years. In fact, how does it feel to be getting back in the ring after such a long hiatus?
Yeah, it's been very long time, very long time. I'm happy, honestly, very happy. I can't express my feeling, how happy I am. And I want to fight. It's like, it was a hard time. I had to stay disciplined all the time because they said I might fight next month, every month. So I was ready all the time. So I think I'll be okay.
What was your reaction when you first heard the news that the fight with Gabriel Maestre was confirmed?
I was like, oh my God, it's happening. It's real, It's like, I knew at some point, we were speaking about the fights. So I knew a little bit, but not officially. When it's officially, it's official, and the fight is set. So I was so happy, I went to training. I said, oh my God, I can't believe.
That's awesome. Eimantas, you're making your return on a card featuring arguably the biggest star in the sport, Canelo Alvarez, on Cinco de Mayo weekend. Tell us how much that means to you.
Yeah, it's amazing. When I was a kid growing up, I was watching all the Mexican, warriors, and I know the Mexican mentality, never give up. Like they say, they hate the word no mas. So I don't know. I just was thinking about myself, I can't give up. Never, in my life, I have to give not only to get the W, but to give the fans exciting fights, because fans pay hard-earned money for exciting fights, not like, if you're winning comfortably, taking all the rounds. So I always want to bring excitement, because maybe I can box, but I prefer to dance.
You alluded to what you went through, having fights with Virgil Ortiz canceled multiple times, including the week of the fight the second time, and being unable to get a fight since then. How difficult was that for you? I guess emotionally and maybe even, physically, kind of getting trained and then waiting and then training, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it was really hard, to be honest, because I want to fight, the years go by. And of course, it was like frustrating moment, but I don't look, to the past. I always look forward, and it happened, everything is good. I was training. I think I'm one of the most disciplined fighters, because in my country, in Lithuania, every single day where I go, they ask, when are you fighting what's going on, what's happening, why you're not fighting, why they don't do fight with you. So it's hard to explain, them. It's like part of the sport, at some point, some things happen and you just have to stay positive somehow. I tried, and yeah, everything at this moment, God willing, everything will be fine. It's still at this moment, it's hard to believe it's official, yeah, but it's like when I'll be in the ring and I will hear the bell, then I'll be like, I said, like, I'll be free, I'll be me, and I'll be, mean in the ring.
Has this thing sort of made you hungrier?
Yeah, that's for sure. I'm hungry as hell. I'm not going to lie. It's like, I don't know. I'm itchy to get back in the ring, to put the gloves, to get all these goosebumps in the locker room, waiting for a fight. Like, basically, I'm all the time like sleeping in the locker room. I have like pretty good nervous system. So I sleep in the locker room. When it's time, I just go, wake up, and I know, I have that switch. So I put that switch on and it's ready to go.
Now, you and Gabriel Maestre have some history. You fought him in the amateurs. What do you remember about that amateur fight back in 2015?
At that moment, I was only like 20 years old, and it was like my first big like championship. It was world championship at that moment. Now everybody can go to world championships. At the moment you have to qualify to be in world championships. I think from continental it was only 4 people. Let's say from Europe 4, from Pan America, from Asia, Oceania. So it was really hard. So nothing. I was just young kid, just trying to get my name in amateurs and trying to get qualification for Olympic Games. So it was a good fight. I was just young, and he was like at the peak, at the top, at the moment. He was really, really good. I had like 0 man strength at that moment. If I'm comparing now, myself. So at the moment I had like 0 man strength.
What have you seen from Maestre in the professional ranks?
He's strong. He goes forward, little bit less movement than he was doing in the amateurs. He stays in the pocket and likes to trade also, like myself. So I feel it's going to be good night of fireworks.
Now, he has only 7 fights. He has only 34 pro rounds. Can a fighter, even a talented one, get enough experience to compete on your level with so few fights?
I don't know. It depends on how you live your life. It's basically like you have to live a life like as an athlete. It's really different. I don't know how to say. I know some fighters might be more talented, but they go and do some crazy stuff. But in this sport, especially in professional, it's not like you go there, you lose, you come back next week. It's not like basketball, not like football. It's you have to prepare for that one moment, and it's tough.
Do you for you, obviously you won the WBA regular title in 2022. You had a great fight against Raja Butayev. What did you learn about yourself that night?
Basically nothing. I knew always I can dig deep at any time. I knew of course, when you become the champion, like the Diablo says, you become, 2 times more better. So I hope I will be, on May 4. But what I learned, I can say like nothing about. I knew in the gym I had sparring with world champions, with a lot of tough guys, and I was doing really good in early my pro career. So of course, when the time comes, it's like it just will. Let's put it that way. I will be more comfortable under these lights, because at the moment everything was on me. All my country behind. It's like you don't realize like how crazy everybody is supporting me like crazy, and everybody is waiting for my fight, and they will be waking up at like 3-4 a.m.
Wow.
So yeah, I have that pressure, of my country. Everybody wants to see me succeed. So it's good. It's good.
You brought up sparring. Obviously you work with Marvin Samodio over at Wildcard Gym. Can you tell us what that experience has been like working with him?
It's good. It's good. He's also hungry like me. I'm hard worker. I'm really hard worker. There is like two types of hard working. It's like hard working and really hard working. So I'm that guy. And Myron also likes that. And he's also like that. He's hungry. He wanted, to have his world champion, his own. So he got me and also my coach from Lithuania. So we are basically making history. I'm very happy.
Where do you feel you've made the most improvement?
I think defensively, of course, I will get hit all the time. It's my style, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, defensively, I'm working much more on defense and sharp punches,
Yeah. No, he said it's your style, but I've seen you box off your back foot before. I remember watching your 4th or 5th pro fight in California, I believe it was. And you were doing like the Philly shell, like the shoulder roll and boxing off your back foot. So did you just make a conscious decision to change your style, or is it, whatever is needed for that particular opponent?
Yeah, like in the amateurs, I was like more going forward and mid-range, and sometimes going backwards, but not all the time. But in professionals, I like to go more forward. Of course, it depends on the opponent. So that's good. I can box and I can bang. So, but I always basically choose to bang and brawl. So I think the fans, get excitement of that. Even me as a fan of the sport, I love the sport and I watch it. So when the fight's like, boring, I just turn it off. When there is like a banger, it doesn't matter weight or it's man or woman. I get excited. I got those goosebumps. Like, let's go, like Mexican style.
Now you've got the WBA regular world title. I know you want more. You want the full title owned by Terrence Crawford. I read that you're calling for Crawford to give up his belt. Is that your position?
Yeah, for sure. So we just need some clarity what's going on. So yeah, he has to do some moves. I don't know. I saw he's holding the titles because he wants maybe to push the WBO mandatory at 154. So I don't know what's going on. I feel like I'm full champion. It's like not like because I'm a champion, he's like super champion. So it's not like interim.
Now, obviously, a lot of people think he is the best in the world. A significant challenge. What are your thoughts on tangling with a guy like that at some point?
that will be great, but it won't happen because he's looking for a big fight, big opportunity, and I just need to be back especially after 2 year layoff. I got good momentum, and I wanted to stay active. That's my thing, and I don't know. I just need to earn my name, more known in US. So also thank you guys for opportunity. Always the media is making us better and more known. Especially me, I'm from Lithuania. Nobody knows I think about the country. So I'm carrying the flag.
Mario Barrios is also fighting on this card. He has the interim WBC welterweight title. What are your thoughts on Barrios as a fighter?
Yeah, he's a good fighter. He's like battle tested, Also, he's a Mexican warrior. He likes to fight inside at some point. And I saw his few fights. Maybe, we'll see each other down the line. It will be a really great fight. I think so. For the fans, especially.
In your opinion right now, who are the top 3 welterweights in the world?
Top 3 welterweight. So we are going with Crawford, Spence, or no, or they are out of that picture.
Well, I mean, that's your call, but they haven't moved that officially. So.
Of course, I would say Crawford at this moment is the best because he proved, it's like you can't nothing to say about the guy. He's the best. He showed everybody, he beat the Spence. I was thinking, I was thinking it's going to be a close fight, but I think Spence is like a bigger and he has a little bit more experience under the bright lights. So I think Spence, but yeah, he proved me wrong, and all praise to him. He's the man.
Yeah. So you got him number 1, and then who's 2 and 3?
And then second one would be like Ennis, and third maybe Spence.
I like that. So where do you see yourself?
Yeah, I'm after them. I guess so. Like I said, 2 years in activity, everybody thinks I was maybe drinking or partying or not training and I'm wash over or something, but I'll be in discipline much more than other guys, and I will show on May 4th.
Now, assuming all goes well, let's say on May 4th, you emerge victorious, but you don't get the Crawford fight, right? Who would you like to fight next?
Honestly, anybody. I said like anybody, I will fight anybody. Just give me a date. Just send me a location, like Habib said, I'll fight anybody.
But if you had to name one person that you are targeting, or one person that you really want to get in the ring with, who do you think it would be?
I won the tennis fight for sure. I remember in 2020, I think 2020, they asked me twice if I would fight him. Said, of course, let's go. Everybody can. I have the proof, my coach, even Marvin, he knows, and my coach from Lithuania knows. Say they are offering this fight. What's your thoughts? They say, okay, let's go. I was also in, so I would love to fight him. I don't know why, but it's like he seems now, they say he's a boogeyman, he's the best. And fighting him, also Barrios, he's a good fighter, and he has a WBC belt. Yeah. So that's the belt I want also. I wanted as a kid, but we'll see. I have, haven't fought in a long time, so I just want to get back in the ring.
Are you worried about rust at all?
No, zero. I'm not worried. If you're training and living your life like as an athlete, there should be no worries. Of course, it will be like different feeling because it seems like real when I will be in the locker room, but I know how to deal with my nerves, and that will be like no issue.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, last question for you, Eimantas. Finally, give us a prediction for May 4th. How does it go down between you and Gabriel Maestre?
It's hard to say. I just want to win, and I will do everything in my power to win. I want to win so badly. Never wanted to get a W like this. Never felt like this. So I'm just locked in, focused, and I'm on the good path, on the right track, and it will be like my comeback party.
Awesome. Eimantas, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us. We welcome you back. Look forward to seeing you on May 4th, and look forward to having you on again after.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. Have a good day.
My name is
Canelo Álvarez. Jaime Munguía.
Canelo Munguia, Saturday, May 4th, live on PBC Pay-Per-View on Prime Video.
It's time for Mike and I to go toe-to-toe. This week, we are each naming our MVP of the first PBC on Prime Video event. I've got my choice ready, and Mike has got his. So, Mike, go ahead and kick this one off.
Okay, this was fun to think about. So first of all, I can make a strong case for Cruz, obviously. He made the strongest impression on the card. You have to be impressed with what Lara did at 40 years old. And once again, I really liked what I saw from Bochuk, who made a good opponent look ordinary. I'm going to go with Fundora, though. Yes, he caught a break when Tszyu's head collided with Fundora's elbow and caused that crazy cut on his hairline, which made it difficult for Tszyu to see from the third round on. But again, injuries are part of boxing. It just is what it is. There was no guarantee that Fundora was going to be able to take advantage of his luck, but he did. He came in with a good game plan, which is to finally commit to his height and reach advantages by boxing. And he kept his focus. He stayed on course when Tszyu got cut, continued to fire off his jab, like you said, maybe at a higher rate than he ever has, and landed enough power shots to win the rounds. And don't forget, Fundora was bleeding too. He probably broke his nose early in the fight, which accounts for the blood coming out of it. He also bled through his mouth. You can only wonder how much blood he swallowed, and swallowing too much blood can become a big problem. Still, Fundora kept doing his thing, like a man on a mission, which really impressed me. As I said earlier, Fundora was lucky, but he was also really good. He took advantage of his good fortune. Not everybody's able to do that, particularly against a really good opponent who wouldn't give up like Tszyu. So for me, the Towering Inferno is my MVP.
Yeah. And what a turnaround it was for him, from fighting on the undercard for a vacant title to being in the main event for 2 world titles, and to walk away from that as the unified champion and now the man in the 154-pound division, when just a year ago, he was a meme. And folks were talking about, the knockout of the year loss to Brian Mendoza. And so things turn around very, very quickly in the sport of boxing. So I think that's a great choice. My choice for MVP is Isaac Pitbull Cruz. What a tremendous performance by Cruz. I mean, he dominated Rolly Romero from start to finish. He got the stoppage, which I think always deserves bonus points, and he became a world champion. I mean, those are enough reasons to give him the MVP award, but it doesn't stop there for Cruz. One, Pitbull is a star. I realized it a couple years ago when he was on the Errol Spencer Dennis Ugas undercard, and I marveled at how many people were in AT&T Stadium for him and how loved he really was. Then I remember the week of Spence Crawford last July, having a conversation with a couple casual fans in an elevator, and one of them was like, I want to see Pitbull fight. Pitbull? And I'm like, yeah. In my head, I'm thinking, man, this guy is a rising star. Well, he is shining now. He has tremendous support. And had tremendous support from a very large crowd at T-Mobile Arena, and he delivered. We see now that his IG followers numbers have blown over 1.3 million or what have you. The man is ready to headline a show by himself, and I'm talking about a big show. It was just a tremendous night for Isaac Cruz, and Mike, I think that Tank Davis rematch just got a whole lot more interesting, in my opinion.
Yeah, what you just said there, that absolutely, yeah, it is a lot bigger. Yeah, again, I think Cruz made the strongest impression of anybody on the card. Pretty obvious. He was the guy people were talking about afterward, putting the bizarre circumstances of the main event aside for a moment. He looked like one of the better fighters in the world in the fight, pound for pounder to me. Yeah, that's rarefied air. Romero has his limitations, but he's a good athletic fighter with above average punching power. He got to where he was for a reason, and Cruz just had his way with the guy, as if he was fighting some journeyman. I still think you have to put Canelo Alvarez and Juan Francisco Estrada ahead of him. among Mexican fighters, but I think he's in the next group of guys vying to become the face of Mexican boxing. Guys like Emmanuel Navarrete, Jaime Munguia, who fights Canelo in May, and William Zepeda. He has a chance to become a Mexican legend.
And who?
William Zepeda.
Okay, I don't think he belongs in that group with Pitbull Cruz at all. I don't know. It took me a second to figure out who you were even talking about. But go on. I'm sorry. Go on. I had no idea, but I can't see him. At least in terms, I think that's a pretty good. Maybe he has the potential to be a good fighter, but you think a star like the face?
Well, he's an unbeaten guy who's knocking everybody out too. So yeah, maybe he's a step or two behind Cruz at this point. In fact, he is a step or two behind, but. Well, I would suggest you keep an eye on him. I think there's something special there. But anyway, back to Cruz. Now, he has a chance to become a Mexican legend if he continues to do what he did in that fight. And I have no reason to believe that he won't. I don't see any problems in his arsenal. I think he's got it all.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, again, the connection he has with the fans, I think, is just most impressive. Again, I'm taken aback every single time I'm at one of his fights, and I just see how many people are out there for him. It's insane. And then I looked at his social statistics the day after, and I'm like, holy crap, this guy is the real deal. I mean, the highlights for his stoppage of Romero had 4 million views in 24 hours. It was just something crazy. So I think definitely there is reason to be excited about his potential. Obviously, we got a long way to go before we see, how this all shakes out and so forth. But definitely a great night of boxing. And that is going to do it for this week's show. We want to thank Eimantas Stanionis for joining us. I want to thank you guys, of course, for listening. Be sure to check us out next week for more boxing talk right here on the PBC Podcast.